Hey everyone, welcome to this deep dive. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a tough one today as we try to make sense of this whole thing with Philip Enewally, his P2istheName online. And his passing has just left a huge hole in the digital community. And to be honest with you, I'm still processing it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are. And, P2istheName's reach was so far and wide. I mean, nearly 4 million subscribers on YouTube alone. And that's not even counting, the clothing line, the production company. And he was so young. And to have it end like this, found in a Los Angeles mailroom on March 14th, and we're still waiting on a cause of death. It's a shock to the system.
Yeah, it really is. And you see all these tributes pouring in from other YouTubers, fans alike, and it really hits you, the impact that he had. But I think, beyond the headlines, beyond just the subscriber count, it's important to take a deep dive into what made P2istheName so special, so connected to his audience. What made him tick.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the metrics of online success, the numbers and all that. But with P2istheName, there was something more. He wasn't just a popular gamer or, whatever. He was a personality. He was a voice that resonated with so many people on a deeper level.
Right. And so let's start at the beginning, I guess the beginning of his public life anyway. P2istheName first made his mark in the gaming world, if I'm remembering this right. NBA 2K and Fortnite. Those were his early hits, weren't they?
Yeah, you got it.
What was it about those games that made them such good material for content creation? I mean, and what set P2istheName apart from all the countless others who are trying to do the same thing?
Well, you're right. Those games were huge back then. I mean, they were just exploding in popularity. Part of it, I think, was that competitive nature, the anyone can win aspect, and that makes for good viewing, the upsets the rivalries. But P2istheName, he brought something different to the table. Like if you think back to those early Let's Play videos, a lot of creators were just focused on the gameplay. They'd be really good at the game, but that was kind of it. But Philip, he brought his personality into it. He'd be cracking jokes, reacting authentically.
And I remember those videos. He really did feel like that friend you'd want to be gaming with, not just some, untouchable pro just showing off.
Exactly. And he was skilled, no doubt about that. But it was that relatability that drew people in. And as he grew, he started expanding beyond just those walkthroughs, started incorporating those IRL vlogs, giving glimpses into his daily life, his thoughts, his struggles.
That's a good point. It wasn't just about the games anymore. It's about Philip himself. Was that shift, was that considered risky back then? I mean, it seems so common now for YouTubers to kind of blend the gaming with the personal content, but wasn't that a pretty new concept back then?
It really was. And yeah, for someone with such a strong gaming following, it could have backfired. He could have alienated his core audience. But what's so interesting is that it actually broadened his appeal, because by letting people into his life, his vulnerabilities, he tapped into something much more universal that resonated far beyond just the gaming community.
Yeah, and it wasn't just surface level stuff either. He got pretty open about the pressures of content creation, even talking about feeling burnt out, feeling lost at times.
Right. And that's what makes it really interesting, because you're talking at a time when the conversation around mental health, especially amongst, young men, was just starting to open up. And P2istheName, he wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to show that even someone with, millions of followers seemingly living the dream life could still struggle. And that resonated so deeply with people, especially younger viewers who are facing their own pressures.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot in the tributes that are online, people talking about how his videos actually helped them through some really tough times, made them feel seen and understood. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. And it speaks to that unique bond that he created with his audience. He wasn't just entertaining them, he was connecting with them on a human level, offering a sense of community and shared experience.
There's one tribute that really stood out to me. It was from Klethman. And he talked about how P2 was more than just a fellow YouTuber. He was like a mentor, a friend, someone who offered guidance and support, which, for a younger creator like Klethman trying to make it in such a competitive landscape, I bet that meant the world.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't just Klethman. There are so many stories from fans about how P2istheName would respond to their messages, offer encouragement. He even helped some through personal crises. It's clear he saw his platform as more than just a way to, build his brand. He saw it as a way to actually connect with people, to make a difference, and he did.
So we've seen how he rose to fame. We see how he built this incredible community, but it wasn't all sunshine and roses, right? I mean, he also talked openly about his struggles, the pressure of being P2istheName. Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think it's a really important part of his story. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's essential to acknowledge that, the complexities, the pressures that come with that level of visibility. And with P2istheName, you see this interesting tension playing out. On one hand, he had this incredible drive, launching that clothing line, into starting a production company, always pushing himself forward. But on the other hand, he also talked about feeling lost, feeling unsure of his direction.
Right. And in his final video, he mentions plans to relocate to Atlanta, like he was looking for a fresh start, new opportunities, and maybe a chance to redefine himself, both personally and professionally. And it makes you wonder, what were those plans? What was he hoping to achieve with this move?
That's a question we can only really speculate on now, but I think what's important is that he was actively seeking change, looking for something more, and I think that speaks volumes about his character, even with all the success, the fame. He wasn't afraid to admit that he was still searching, still growing.
Yeah, it's both inspiring and heartbreaking, isn't it? Knowing that he was on the verge of this new chapter, this potential reinvention, makes his sudden passing even more tragic.
It does, and it leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions. But what we do know is that he left an indelible mark on the digital landscape, and he touched countless lives along the way.
Absolutely. He was a talented gamer, a budding entrepreneur, a relatable voice who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, and a mentor to many. That's a pretty incredible legacy for someone so young.
It is, and it makes you think about the pressures that come with that kind of success, especially in the always-on world of online content creation.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that we need to have. What can we as a digital community do to better support creators and ensure their well-being? It's a heavy question, and one we'll dive into a little bit more as we continue exploring P2istheName's legacy.
Yeah, it's a question we all need to be asking because, when you look at P2istheName's trajectory, it reflects a larger trend that we're seeing, in online content creation these days. It's like those lines are blurring between the persona and the person, the curated and the authentic. And while that vulnerability can be incredibly powerful, it also comes with its own risks.
Yeah, you're right. It's like this double-edged sword. On one hand, you have this incredible opportunity to connect with millions of people. You can build a community, share your passions. But on the other hand, you're constantly exposed under scrutiny, dealing with that pressure to produce, to stay relevant, to keep those algorithms happy.
And, those algorithms, they don't care about your mental health, your need for downtime, your personal struggles. They just want content. They want engagement. They want clicks. It's a relentless machine, and it can be incredibly draining, especially for, younger creators who are still figuring things out, still trying to find their place in the world.
It really makes you wonder, about the long-term sustainability of this whole creator economy. How do we balance those demands of the digital world with the needs of the actual human beings, but behind the screen?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer, but I think it starts with awareness, recognizing the pressures that these creators face, acknowledging the mental health challenges that can arise in this kind of environment.
Yeah, we need to move beyond, just the numbers, the likes, the subscriber counts, and actually see the human beings behind those metrics. And I think that's something that P2istheName understood instinctively. He built his success not just on his gaming skills or, his entrepreneurial ventures, but on his willingness to be open to share his struggles and his triumphs with his audience.
Exactly. He showed that it's okay to not be okay. To talk about your mental health, to seek help when you need it. And that kind of vulnerability, especially coming from someone with his level of influence, can be incredibly powerful. It can help destigmatize mental health. It can encourage others to seek support, and it can foster a more compassionate online community.
Yeah, and, I was reading some of the comments on his final video, the one where he talks about moving to Atlanta, and there's this recurring theme of people thanking him for his honesty, for making them feel less alone in their own struggles. Some even credit him with helping them get through some really dark times.
Yeah. It's a testament to the impact that he had, the connections that he forged. He created this space where vulnerability wasn't a weakness, but a strength. And that's a legacy that goes far beyond, any game that he played or any product that he launched.
It really does. But I also think it raises some important questions. How do we as a society, as a digital community, better support creators? How do we create a culture where they can thrive both creatively and personally without sacrificing their well-being?
These are complex questions with no simple answers, but I think it starts with shifting our perspective. We need to stop seeing creators as just content-producing machines and start recognizing them as human beings, with needs and emotions and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's about fostering a culture of empathy and understanding and support. It's about challenging that narrative that success equals constant hustle and output.
Yeah.
It's about creating space for vulnerability, for authenticity, for real human connection, all things that P2istheName embodied.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a healthier, more sustainable online environment. It's not just on the creators themselves, it's on the platforms, it's on the brands, and yeah, even us, the audience.
So what can we as viewers, as fans, as members of this digital community do differently? What actions can we take to support the creators that we love and admire?
That's a great question, and it's one I think each of us needs to consider, individually. But some things that come to mind are being mindful of the comments that we leave, the
Yeah.
messages that we send, remembering that there's a real person on the other side of that screen, someone who might be dealing with their own challenges. Choose kindness, offer encouragement, and just be aware of the impact that your words can have.
Yeah, it's about being a conscious consumer of content.
Yeah.
Supporting creators who prioritize their well-being, who promote positive values, who are actively working to create a healthier online environment. And it's about speaking out against toxicity and harassment and those unrealistic expectations.
And sometimes it's about simply stepping back, disconnecting, and remembering that there's a world beyond the screen, a world where human connection, face-to-face interaction, and real-life experiences, matter just as much, if not more, than those digital metrics.
That's a message I think P2istheName would have appreciated. He was always striving to connect with people on a deeper level, beyond the confines of the screen. And in his final video, you can really sense this desire to break free from that digital treadmill, explore new horizons, redefine success on his own terms.
It's heartbreaking that we'll never know what those new horizons might have held. But what we can do is learn from his journey, honor his legacy, and work to create a digital world where creators can thrive without sacrificing their well-being.
I think that's a beautiful sentiment, and it leads perfectly into the final chapter of P2istheName's story. The unfinished chapter, if you will. His sudden passing leaves us with so many unanswered questions, so much potential left unrealized. Let's explore that a bit further, shall we?
Absolutely. I think it's important to acknowledge that sense of loss, the grief that so many are feeling. But it's also an opportunity to reflect on the fragility of life, the importance of mental health and the need for greater compassion and understanding in our digital interactions.
And maybe his story can serve as a catalyst for change, a reminder that we need to do better, be better, both for ourselves and for those who create the content that, enriches our lives. It's crazy, right? Like, as we're talking about all of this, what really strikes me is how much P2istheName's story kind of mirrors, the anxieties of our time, like
Yeah.
that constant pressure to achieve, that fear of missing out, those blurred lines between our online and offline selves. These are themes that resonate way beyond, just the world of YouTube or gaming.
Oh, absolutely. His story, in a lot of ways, reflects those broader societal shifts that we're all grappling with, in this digital age, that always on culture, the commodification of attention, that constant pursuit of likes and followers. It's a lot to navigate, even for those of us who aren't, in the public eye.
And it's so poignant because he was aware of these pressures. He talked about them so openly, and yet he still struggled. It's a reminder that even, the most successful, the most seemingly together individuals, could be battling demons that we know nothing about.
Yeah, it really underscores the importance of, normalizing those conversations about mental health, creating those spaces where vulnerability is welcomed and not shamed. And it highlights that need for systemic change, for platforms, for industries to really prioritize the well-being of their creators and not just their output.
It's a wake-up call, isn't it? It's like a reminder that we need to be more mindful of the human cost of our digital obsessions, both as creators and as consumers. And it begs the question, what can we do individually and collectively to create a more humane and sustainable and compassionate, digital landscape?
It's a question that we each need to grapple with, but I think it starts with awareness, acknowledging the complexities, the pressures, the potential pitfalls of this digital world that we've created. It's about challenging that narrative that success is measured solely by, those metrics, by followers, by that relentless pursuit of more.
And recognizing that we're all interconnected,
Yeah.
that our actions, our words, our choices, they have ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate circles. I mean, the internet could be this incredible tool for connection, for community, for creativity, but it can also be a breeding ground for isolation, for comparison, for despair. It's up to us to shape the kind of digital world that we want to live in.
And, P2istheName, through his vulnerability, his authenticity, his willingness to share his struggles and his triumphs, he showed us a different path, a more human way of navigating this digital landscape. And while his story ended far too soon, his legacy, can continue to inspire us to create a better, a kinder, a more compassionate online world.
I think that's the perfect way to put it, and I think that's the most fitting tribute that we can offer. To take the lessons that he shared, the conversations that he started, and continue to build on them.
Yeah.
Create a digital world where creators can thrive, where authenticity is valued, and where mental well-being is prioritized.
It's a tall order, no doubt, but it's a challenge worth embracing, a legacy worth fighting for.
Well said to everyone listening. I encourage you to share your own memories of P2istheName in the comments.
Yeah.
Celebrate his life and carry his message of hope and humanity forward. How can we as a digital community better support creators and ensure their well-being? Let's keep that question, at the forefront of our minds as we navigate this ever-evolving digital world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.